Oh, okay. Wait. Nope, what did I do? That is the second to last slide. Wait. Am I doing that? You guys are going to get a weird preview of what's going to happen. All right. Hello! My name is Dr. Lawrence Turtleman. I'm a professor of turtle studies. No one ever knows how things work. Certainly not me. I have been invited out today to talk to you about taxonomy and phylogeny, which is, I think, is something that we all spend a lot of time thinking about. It worked the way it was supposed to. I was just worried about it. So, you probably spent time laying awake at night thinking, I know that taxonomy and phylogeny are related, but not the same thing. What's the difference between those two things? Well, you came to the right place, my friends. Phylogeny, also called phylogenetics, yes, this is actually what's happening. So don't think that there's another joke coming. I'm going to give you a presentation on taxonomy. It's happening. Phylogenetics, the second part of that word is genetics. So we know where that one comes from. But the first part, philo, is the same word as the word file, which is like, so we're saying that this is like genetic filing. It's like a filing cabinet for a classification of organisms, which is why I put a filing cabinet on this slide. Taxonomy, on the other hand, was created far before we even knew that genetics even existed. We didn't know that evolution was a thing. When Carl Linnaeus, everybody clapped for Carl. When Carl Linnaeus first created taxonomy, this was 100 years before Charles Darwin was even born. It was a pretty remarkable thing that he was able to figure all this stuff out with only his brain and looking at organisms and saying, these two things look similar. Before that, everybody was classifying things based on what organisms did rather than what features they shared. So like a bee and a bird would be classified in the same way, which is obviously wrong. So this is when we created these taxa. You learn these taxa in high school. Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. And then you forget them, which is why I had to turn around to look at the thing. But it's okay, as long as you know what they are. In every taxa, you have taxa below it, except in subspecies. So even if species has a taxa below it, which is the subspecies, but a species can be monotypic, meaning that it is the only species and there are no subspecies, like the indigo macaw, for example. But there are other examples of monotypic taxa. A monotypic genus, for example, would be the genus Nidorellia, which contains only one species. So it's a genus with one species and no subspecies, and that is the chocolate chip star, which is a starfish, and that's all I know about it. But could you get even more rare than that? Could you have a family that only has one genus, that only has one species, and that has no subspecies? Well, you can. This is a bearded reedling, Panurus biarmicus. A bearded reedling is a bird. That's all I know about it. But could you get even more rare than that? Could you have an order that only has one family, that only has one genus, that only has one species? That would be really weird, right? Because, like, here we have the red fox, this terrible drawing. It's the first time I've noticed how bad it is. Red fox. In the order Carnivora, there are a lot of carnivores, right? But could you have an order that only has one species in the whole order? In fact, there are 3. Oh my God. If you were watching carefully, you already knew that. First, we have order Tubulidentata. The only species in order Tubulidentata is the Aardvark. The aardvark looks a lot like a South American anteater, and so you might be thinking, well, I've seen lots of different kinds of anteaters, but in fact, the aardvark is an African species and isn't related to South American anteaters at all. It just looks a lot like them because it survives the same way. Aardvarks are extremely effective and have a very wide range in Africa, but despite how good at being alive they are, all of their ancestors went extinct a long time ago. Its nearest living relative is this little guy. I mostly included it because it's so cute, but also because when Europeans first found the elephant shrew, they were like, well, look, a shrew that looks kind of like an elephant. So we'll call it an elephant shrew. It turns out that the elephant shrew is more closely related to the elephant than to the shrew. That's not a joke, it's a real thing. You're still laughing. Next we have Order Opisthocomiformes, the Watson. Look at that bird.
That is amazing.
That's obviously a weird bird. The Watson is a South American bird that is a ruminant, meaning that it eats leaves, and those leaves are digested by microorganisms in its gut, and they turn it into sugars that they're able to survive on, which is a really weird way for a bird to live. These guys separated from birds 64 million years ago. That's what? Like around the time the dinosaurs lived is when these guys last had a shared ancestor with current birds. That can't be a thing, but it is. In South America, they call them stink birds because they poop so much.
Oh no.
And finally, we have Order Rhynchocephalia. Everybody loves them, but Tuatara. The Tuatara looks like a lizard. But it is not a lizard. It shares a common ancestor with lizards, but they split off from that common ancestor so long ago that they are as related to lizards as birds are to a crocodile. And I didn't make that up. And I know it sounds weird, but that's just because the world is weird. My head is a little loose. Tuatara live only in one place in the world, in and around New Zealand. And in fact, on the main islands of New Zealand, they went extinct due to habitat infringement and also competition for more effective species that were transplanted there. And that's how they were able to maintain such weird ancient body forms, because there weren't more modern lizards to take their place. Luckily, on the outskirts of New Zealand, there are lots of other islands where Tuatara survived, and they have now been reintroduced to New Zealand and are being used for us to learn all kinds of things about the evolution of snakes and lizards, but also about just how biology and genetics works. So Tuatara are great, and they've been extremely helpful, and I'm glad they didn't go extinct. A note on phylogenetic relationships. Sometimes you will hear people say things like, the dinosaurs didn't go extinct, they're just birds. And that is thinking phylogenetically. And when we think phylogenetically, we talk about every organism remaining the thing that they once were. Which means that you are a mammalian, amniotic, tetrapodal, sarcopterygian, osteichthyan, gnathostomal, vertebrate, cranial chordate. And that means, right here, this word, is there a laser pointer in this thing? Osteichthyan. That means bony fish. You're all bony fishes. All of the terrestrial vertebrates are bony fishes. That's why we all share such similar body forms. We have a head, we have 4 limbs, sometimes they're arms, usually they're legs, but even y'all, all you guys are bony fishes, even me, a Turtleman. I'm also a bony fish. It's pretty amazing when you think phylogenetically, that you can imagine how all of us are related not just to each other, but to all of life on Earth, which allows us a more accurate and also a more inspiring view of the universe. My name is Dr. Larry Turtleman. I'm available for speeches and gigs wherever you need me. I'm thankful for the Green Brothers for having me out. Thank you very much, and have a lovely day.